I wish the guy all the best, but there are an awful lot of people who say that that's not true.
There's a rumor, okay, and he should lose some weight.
Two martial arts legends, each with their own unique style and larger-than-life personality, squared off in the ultimate showdown. In one corner, the Muscles from Brussels is known for its lightning-fast kicks and incredible flexibility. On the other, the Aikido master has a penchant for wrist locks and throws that defy gravity. What happens when Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal finally settle their decades-long feud? Let's find out. In this video, we will dive deep into the ultimate hypothetical showdown, Jean-Claude Van Damme versus Steven Seagal. So make sure to stay around to find out who will win. Let's start by turning back the clock to the late 1980s and early 1990s. Action cinema was at its zenith with muscle-bound heroes dominating the box office. But among the Schwarzeneggers and Stallones, two new contenders were fighting their way to the top, Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal. Born in Brussels, Belgium in 1960, Jean-Claude Van Damme's journey to stardom is the stuff of Hollywood legends. A skinny kid who started training in martial arts at age 10, Van Damme transformed himself into a karate champion and bodybuilder before setting his sights on Tinseltown. In 1982, Van Damme arrived in Los Angeles with nothing but a bag of clothes and a dream. He slept in his car, worked odd jobs, and relentlessly pursued his goal of becoming an action star. His break finally came in 1988 with Bloodsport, a low-budget martial arts flick that showcased Van Damme's incredible physical abilities and undeniable charisma. From there, Van Damme's career exploded. Films like Kickboxer, Lionheart, and Double Impact cemented his status as the most agile and acrobatic of the action stars. His ability to perform jaw-dropping kicks, splits, and martial arts techniques without the need for stunt doubles set him apart from his peers. Meanwhile, Steven Seagal was carving out his own unique path to stardom. Born in Lansing, Michigan in 1952, his martial arts journey began when he moved to Japan at age 17 to study Aikido. Seagal became the first foreigner to operate an Aikido dojo in Japan, earning a 7th degree black belt and the title of Shihan. His expertise in this defensive martial art would become the foundation of his distinct fighting style on screen. Returning to the United States in 1974, Seagal began teaching Aikido in California. Here he made connections in the entertainment industry, eventually leading to his breakout role in the 1988 film Above the Law. Seagal's fighting style was a stark contrast to Van Damme's acrobatics. His Aikido-based approach emphasized joint locks, throws, and using an opponent's energy against them. Films like Hard to Kill, Marked for Death, and Out for Justice established Seagal as a force to be reckoned with in the action movie world. As Van Damme and Seagal rose to prominence, a rivalry began to simmer. Both men were vying for the title of Hollywood's top martial arts star, and their contrasting styles and personalities only fueled the fire. The tension between the two stars came to a head in the early 1990s, when Seagal began publicly questioning Van Damme's fighting credentials. In interviews, Seagal dismissed Van Damme's abilities, claiming that his flashy kicks and splits wouldn't work in a real fight. Van Damme, never one to back down from a challenge, fired back. He pointed out his real-world kickboxing experience and questioned whether Aikido techniques would be effective in a no-holds-barred confrontation. The stage was set for an epic showdown, but would it ever happen? The tension between Van Damme and Seagal reached its peak in 1997 at a party hosted by none other than Sylvester Stallone. According to Stallone's account, both action stars were in attendance, and the atmosphere was electric with anticipation. Van Damme, allegedly fueled by liquid courage, approached Seagal and challenged him to step outside and settle their differences once and for all. The partygoers held their breath, waiting to see if years of speculation would finally be put to rest. But the fight never materialized. Seagal, according to Stallone, made his excuses and left the party. Van Damme, not content to let the matter drop, reportedly tracked Seagal to a nightclub and offered him out again. Stallone said, Seagal made his excuses and left, but Van Damme, who was berserk, tracked him down at a nightclub and offered him out again. This near miss only added fuel to the fire of speculation. Fans and pundits alike debated endlessly. Who would have won if the two had actually fought? To understand who might have the edge in a real fight, we need to break down each fighter's strengths and weaknesses. Jean-Claude Van Damme brings explosive speed and agility to the table. along with powerful kicks, especially his signature roundhouse and spinning back kick. His competitive kickboxing experience gives him an edge in stand-up fighting, and his superior cardiovascular conditioning could be crucial in a prolonged battle. However, Van Damme's reliance on flashy techniques might leave him open to counterattacks, and his less extensive experience in grappling and ground fighting could be exploited. On the other hand, Steven Seagal's strengths lie in his mastery of Aikido techniques, particularly joint locks and throws. His ability to use an opponent's energy against them could be a game changer, especially in close-range fighting. Seagal's larger physical size and weight advantage could also play a significant role. However, Seagal's style places less emphasis on striking techniques, which could be a disadvantage against a skilled striker like Van Damme. Additionally, the effectiveness of Aikido in a no-rules fight scenario is often debated in martial arts circles. Seagal might also have potentially less cardiovascular endurance compared to the highly athletic Van Damme, which could be a factor in a prolonged encounter. In a hypothetical matchup, Van Damme's explosive kicks and agility would give him an advantage at range. He could potentially keep Seagal at bay with his longer reach and diverse striking arsenal. However, if Seagal managed to close the distance, his Aikido skills could prove devastating, potentially neutralizing Van Damme's kicking game and leaving him vulnerable to throws and joint locks. While our hypothetical fight gives the edge to Van Damme, it's important to remember that real fights are unpredictable. Both men possess skills that could potentially end a fight quickly. Interestingly, the possibility of a showdown between these two action icons nearly became a reality in the 2020s. In a recent interview, Van Damme revealed a tantalizing piece of information. He said, "They were having an idea to have a fight between me and Steven at the Mirage, the Las Vegas casino resort. 20 million each. He didn't take the fight." This revelation adds another layer to their long-standing rivalry. It seems that even decades after their prime, the question of who would win in a fight between Van Damme and Seagal still holds enough intrigue to spend $40 million. The Van Damme versus Seagal debate has captivated fans for decades, spawning countless online discussions and heated arguments. On platforms like Reddit, martial arts enthusiasts and movie buffs alike have weighed in on this hypothetical matchup. One popular thread on Reddit titled, "The Film Feud of the 90s, Steven Seagal versus Jean-Claude Van Damme," garnered significant attention, with fans sharing their opinions and anecdotes about the two action stars. Some commenters focused on the infamous party incident, with one user remarking, "The whole story of Van Damme calling Seagal on his shit is amazing. Following him out to a club, he coked out his nut. Classic." Another user noted, 90s martial arts movie stars were on some other level of being high off their own crazy shit. Interestingly, some fans express a clear preference for Van Damme's work. One comment reads, "Honestly, I always feel bad for Jean-Claude Van Damme being put in the same class as Seagal and Norris. His movies were so much better." However, Seagal still has his defenders. One fan confidently stated, Seagal would take him to the blood bank, suggesting that his Aikido skills would overwhelm Van Damme in a real fight. Today, audiences demand more realism in their action sequences. The rise of MMA and the proliferation of martial arts knowledge among the general public have raised the bar for what's considered convincing on-screen combat. This rivalry, and others like it, have contributed to the evolution of mixed martial arts. Fighters today often train in multiple disciplines, combining striking techniques like those used by Van Damme with grappling and throws, similar to Seagal's Aikido. The result is a more well-rounded approach to combat sports, where practitioners are prepared for any fighting scenario. So who would win in a fight between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal? The truth is, we'll probably never know for sure, but perhaps that's not the point. What do you think? Who would win in this ultimate martial arts showdown? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe.